Hi, everyone. Victoria Alai here. I'm author of Survival 101, a life navigator, and a self help addict. I'm here today to introduce you to Dave Miller, who is out there trying to make a difference in this new economy. He's going to share with us today some of his history on how he landed an amazing job in the tech industry years ago and what those lessons can help us with today as the industry changes. So, without further ado, we bring on Dave Miller. Okay, hi, Dave Miller, a friend of our family and also entrepreneur extraordinaire. I am so glad you could meet today. And first of all, just share about yourself for a couple of minutes, who you are, your brief background to give people that. And then let's talk a little bit about the success that you've had. Maybe share an example, getting a career in an unusual way. Okay, go ahead. Give a little info about you first.
So anyway, I'm from Southern California, and the real story starts when I went to grad school at San Diego State and had my master's degree. And there was all sorts of heavy-duty people that had careers in Chicago that would move to San Diego, and it was hard for young people to get positions there because all the real experienced people were moving to San Diego and taking the good jobs.
Interesting.
So I packed up a U-Haul trailer and moved to Denver, and which was just an upcoming thing. And anyway, it was quite an experience that I'd like to share with you because I interviewed with some big companies there, and there was a lot of people lined up for those jobs. And here I had a master's degree in organizational psychology, and a company like Hewlett Packard said, all you can do for us is sell calculators any good. And I did something that's interesting. It's not for everybody, but I went into the yellow pages and I went under
Now,
manufacturers
wait a
agents.
second. You need to explain what yellow pages are to some of our viewers.
Okay, I went to the phone book, and in the back page of the phone book had listings for about 300 manufacturers, agents, and reps. And these are all little sales companies that represent the big companies actually, they typically represent the startups. And so anyway, I called all 300 of them, and every 5 to 10 phone calls, I would have a job possibility. And so I
Ooh.
charted it all out and as to what the benefits of anyone were. And I chose one that had to do with computer graphics. And it was the start of an industry at the time, and it was real exciting. And so it made for a very exciting career because I got into the right time when the computer graphics,
Ooh.
it's like the AI now. It was the mover shaker thing. But I carefully chose the company that they were, supportive. And there's a lot of things to look at in selecting a company, such as what kind of commissions they do and what kind of territory. And you got to talk to people and find out that you're not getting into a bad situation. But anyway, it was a good situation. So I guess one of the things I like to say is that I got into a good industry. And so
Interesting. So you thought about the industry when you called those 300 companies. By the way, backing up a little, what did you ask these companies? How did you do that? A lot of people might be afraid to pick up the phone or even email or something, but how did you know who to talk to? And then once you got them on the line, what kind of questions did you talk to the presidents or did you talk to a salesperson there?
So these are little companies. So you talk to the
Okay.
president
Right. Okay. Okay. You call.
directly. President, yeah, they have different criteria than the big companies, and so anyway, that's the way it's done.
And did you
Um,
just ask about their company? So you weren't really asking for a job right there. What you were doing was you were
no,
asking them.
I was asking for a job, but I had to know what they represented. So all these rep companies have a specialty, and
Tell us
and they
about a
have
rep company. People might not understand rep companies.
this is important. So if you start a company and you have a choice, you can market online, or you can hire a direct sales force, or you can have distributors, or you can have reps.
Okay.
And the distributors take possession of the products and they handle the money and the support and so forth. Reps are just sales organizations. They don't do any of the billing or shipping or anything like that. They are sales, and they have exclusive territories. And so there are networks of these all around the country and for various industries, and they know each other. So if you're a rep in one area, they talk to the reps in other areas, they find out what companies to represent. And in the case of the computer graphics industry, that I was selling high-tech peripherals, and
What are peripherals for the average person? What does that mean?
it was plotters, digitizers, graphic systems,
Oh,
CAD systems,
printers and
but also it was image processing systems and image processing software, and it was a lot
ah,
of
so you handled all of it. So this company had products that were both software and hardware, and
well,
it
no,
happened to be a growing industry.
see, the industry is everything to do with computer graphics. So
Right.
these rep They don't compete. And so a rep company may have one plotter company they represent, but they can't have two plotter companies. But they can have a
Ah,
advertiser company, a graphics monitor system, or a graphics processor system, just so they don't compete. But they're all in the same industry, so you're calling on the right people.
that reminds me of my time at Robert Waxman's when we were all selling computer graphics. We were selling Sony cameras as well as computer graphics computers and silicon graphics and software and everything. But we had all the products from different manufacturers. So as a rep, you're repping for a particular vertical, for instance, like the computer graphics at the time. I have a question. When you're deciding which company, you got a job offer every five. So what is that? 300 every, I don't know, 60 companies offered you a job basically when you did those phone calls. And so what made you think of this particular field? Like you said, it's AI and maybe robotics now. How did you know that it was something like that was going to go up? What gave you that idea?
Just intuition.
Ah,
It's a big part of it anyway. I
mm-hmm.
want a little side here, and this is
Yeah,
really important. So in the sales world, if you take a job selling toilet paper, okay, this is real important. You call on the same buyers all the time, and you may enjoy that. So some people like that.
right.
And so you have a joke and a trinket, and you tell them their fart smells good, and all everything. So
Sales
yeah,
101.
yeah, that's it. And you sell your toilet paper, and it's the same buyers over and over again, and it's a routine. Okay. But here's the key. When you're selling high tech, it's a different story. So I was selling to engineers, and it was a lot of leading edge companies, and they don't have time for small talk. They're friendly and they would want to go to lunch with me, but they don't want to hear my jokes. And they wanted first they would want to tell me what they wanted, and it was my job to listen. And so that's a very important, extremely important point, because
To
so many
listen.
sales, they're so busy pitching, they don't listen. And so these guys, these engineers would give the answers to the quiz. But they needed answers to what was going on in the industry, because their job depended on having the best technology. They needed to stay in touch. They didn't have time for small talk. They needed to stay in touch because and they needed to inform their boss, or maybe I was going to lunch with their boss, and they needed to be in touch with what's going on because it was moving and shaking so fast. And so that made it very exciting, very
Oh,
exciting.
so it sounds like you were on the cutting edge there, or probably
Well,
the leading edge, not the bleeding edge, but you were dealing with companies that had real products.
what's fun is I would go to the trade shows and I would work. So a manufacturer would be at a trade show. And
Right.
so every industry has their trade shows. And so you go to the trade shows and you work the booth for your it's called the principal, the company, the different companies you represent. And so sometimes the reps work in the booth and help do leads. And so I learned from a lot of from really good sales managers. I learned a lot. But these trade shows are also exciting. All the big boys are in the middle of the show, okay?
Uh-huh.
And they have direct salespeople and they have the big money. All around the edge of the show are
Ah.
all the startups, and those are fun to be. Those
Oh,
there's no
yeah.
security startup, but it's fun, and those guys are more likely to need reps. They need a rep company, and they'll talk to one rep company, and that rep company will say, also you ought to try this guy in New York and this guy.
Exactly. So they tell you about their buddies. They basically say, hey, if you're going to offer our product, why don't you also offer our friend's product over here too?
You
Now,
got it.
so then you start a little community in a sense, and you're out there saying, we've got a full solution. But what you're doing is you're representing all the little guys. And so when you were doing this job, were you actually your own value added reseller, or were you working for somebody that was doing it and you had a
So this
territory?
so this is important, is that I worked for a rep company that had a
Ah,
territory. Okay. And I could have started my own rep company. In thinking about it, a young kid in college could have a rep
right.
company. And so you can do it on your own, but you have to pay for all your expenses and like that. So my rep company paid for all my hotels, and they bought me nice cars and took care of all my expenses and so
That's
forth.
probably because you were helping them.
And that's part of picking the right rep company. You see what they give you and so forth. But so I lucked out. I got a good rep company that worked with me and was patient with me to start with and so forth. And
When you look back and you say, think about the people listening now that might be in the same boat looking for some opportunity, because right now, especially what's interesting about sales is no matter what happens, There'll always be sales opportunities, it seems to me, because you can sell a lot online and everything, but there's a lot that can't be really explained online that needs more detail, that needs a full solution, that's not that easy to pull together. And how would you, if you were 25 today, what would you do? Would you probably try to find one of these value added resellers? Or, and if so, how would you pick them? What's your criteria on what's a good company to work for? Maybe either in general, first of all, but secondly, if you were going to do sales for these smaller startups, what would you look for in a company to decide if you wanted to hitch your wagon to that horse or whatever?
It's just a combination of things. It's, do you like the people? You're going to work closely with these people.
Do you
You better
like the
like,
people?
and are the people working for them have good things to say about the company? But I go back to the industry is so damn important because,
Yeah.
and part of it's your passion too.
Tell me
You
more
know, it's
about that. What do you mean about part of it's your passion?
there's a lot of stuff in the automotive industry.
Uh
So if
huh.
you're in that person, why not pick that industry? It's your passion. It's your passion. And there's reps that do books for schools, and there's just all these different niches in life. And but when you pick a niche, then you get to know everybody in that industry. And
Right.
even if it doesn't work out for the first company, you know everybody. You
There
have
you go. There you go. So you pick a industry that is on its way up, not one that's on the way down. So you're not going to go pick the horseshoeing industry right now, for instance. Hey, of course, I have to say, people that are in the horseshoeing industry are in a niche and they're probably making good money. But there again, you have to love it because the opportunities are not as big. And I bet you have to travel a lot further to make that happen.
story have a lot of interesting stories. So one that's in the high tech world in my day, there was ladies that were secretaries, the marketing secretaries.
You almost
Okay.
have to explain what that is. Yeah.
Anyway, the interesting part about it, and the men had the jobs where they were out in the field, okay, and
Right.
travel around. They were the big shots. What was interesting is the marketing secretaries would be taking, the heat would be on. They would be at the office handling one call after another, one
Ah,
situation after another, and they became very valuable because
interesting. So they weren't just answering the phone per se, they were actually helping to streamline and market and
they
direct
had
and
to make things happen. The hotshot sales managers were out there entertaining. They had to keep the shop going, and they learned.
right.
So it was an interesting situation.
That is interesting. And
Yes.
it just goes to show that it takes a team of some
Yeah.
kind to pull these things off.
So another thing that's really important. So I get back to the sales call when so I'm calling an engineer, okay, and the engineer, in case with engineers, they're very strong minded, okay, and they're going to tell you what they want, okay, and so the salesman cannot tell them anything, okay. They need to they can tell them about the industry and general stuff, but these engineers will say what the right thing is, and they will be adamant about it. So my job was to get bloody on both ends. I would
That's right.
so an engineer would tell me that my company was screwed, my engineers were stupid, and that they should do it this way, and this is the right way to do it, and I'd have to listen, okay, and but never question them, And then I would go to my engineers and they'd say, your customer is stupid. And so I would have to take the blows in the middle and somehow make the deal. And then part of my job was to be nervous the whole time because anything can go wrong when you
Oh,
got to worry
yeah.
patients coming in. So you got to monitor it day by day. But one of the fun parts, skipping around a bit, is that being in an industry, I got to know all these people in the graphics industry, which is
Right.
in this case, it was a broad range of people. And that's why the reps are so valuable because they know a lot of people, they know where to go, and they have long-term relationships. So I might take somebody out for lunch that's in that industry, and
Hmm.
maybe I don't have a product for them today, but they know
Right.
what I do, and they know what number to call and so forth. So I did a lot of seating, but then you sometimes and everybody, oh, and then you have all these customers that are the big shots, okay, and they'll tell you they're gonna, oh, we're gonna have 100 tomorrow, we're gonna have 100 outlets and all that stuff. You just got to take it in because and listen to them, but you don't get too excited about it.
I see what you're saying. You
And and
wait.
by the way, that's a huge thing in job seeking. Is so some people say, I've applied, okay, and I'm waiting.
Right.
No, cannot wait. You got to have a lot of balls in the air because you can't stop and it's important to have a lot of seeds that are potential to groom out there, but you don't stop and wait for one. That's a huge mistake. Huge mistake.
Absolutely. And that's what I've heard too is one option is tunnel vision, two is black and white thinking, three or more options. Now you're starting to get some choices together and some opportunities and to try to find that right fit. And it sounds to me like what you did was you didn't want to wait and be the hunted and the prey and sit around and wait for somebody to pick you off at one of these big companies. And especially in San Diego, where there were people flocking there with PhDs, it sounds like at the time when you graduated, but you want to actually be proactive and turn it around and you want to hunt that employer. You want to find out, hey, what do you have to offer? And are we a good match? Will we get along? And are there opportunities for us to grow? Are we in the right industry that's on the way up?
So you asked what to look for, and it's
Yeah,
different for everybody. So in the big companies, there are echelons of Salesforce, and there's a lot of reporting. And in this small rep firm I work for, I was able to go on intuition.
right.
So I didn't have to spend half my time documenting things and having people second
Yes,
mind. I could just be intuitive about it, and about who's for real and who isn't. And it's so boring to be at a big company and to have to go through all that paperwork and that kind of thing. But it's being involved with small companies is much more exciting, and startups are exciting, and
I
but they're
agree.
not security, but it's a big rush. And so
So
later on, I of a small startup, and we were sometimes we'd be working on our product on the airplane to this trade show.
I've been
It's,
there. I've been there
yeah,
myself.
exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you just hope that that it pulls itself together at the right time, and you know what? It usually does, amazingly enough, is what I found when we had a software company back in 2000 called Yakalo, and, uh and I met my soulmate, who I'm married to today, at a startup called Learn To that was called Street. And that was the first video streaming company. And it was in Golden, Colorado. See, these little companies, they're sitting around, they're in garages, they're in basements, they're all over. But then they get to a certain stage where they actually have a viable product. And then people like yourself and myself in the sales world, when I was there, can actually participate in helping to be part of this new industry and to be in the thick of it and to have some fun and to let me ask you, this is my next question. All these people are thinking, oh, I want a big corporate job where I can make a couple 100,000, 500,000, whatever. And that's their only option. Do you think doing it the way you did it, working for these smaller types of companies that were probably representing big companies, do you think that the income that you earned was good for what you wanted in your life? Do you think that it paid, in other words, to not put all your eggs in the basket of corporate and jumping from one big firm to another? What's your feeling on that? Do you think you have abundance as a result of the way that you chose to do things?
So I did well, and it's a speculation. So if you were a startup, there's a speculation you can go under, and
Oh,
but
sure.
another startup will pick you up and that kind of thing. And but it's a matter of what's interesting is in a startup, everybody wears a lot of hats, but is going for the goal. Okay. And when you're in a big company, you got to protect your backside. It's a lot of time
Oh,
spent on
yeah.
a lot of time is spent on politics, but the big companies move slow and the little companies can move fast. When a market comes, they can jump on a new market faster. And it's like I say, it's much more exciting to be with a group of people that are all working in unison together to make it go and not have all the corporate politics that bog you down. But it's
Absolutely. And then you might just find yourself in a company that goes public later or something, and you just don't know. But the bottom line is you have fun. You're on the leading edge of what's happening. You can move a lot faster than a big company. And a couple of things I heard today from what you've shared is that something that they used to call relationship selling when I first started doing sales myself. And that was so helpful, which is like your example where you took the guy out to lunch and he might not have a need right now, but maybe in 2 or 3 years, it ends up being a situation where, but he's already friends with you. And this goes back to the sense of security. I think there are a lot of people right now that are going through some job losses due to the AI, due to the robotics. People are going to be out there having to maybe turn to smaller companies. And I think your big gold nugget that I heard today is keep your focus on the industry and keep your focus on something that's growing and changing And don't just, if you go to these trade shows, which by the way, I'm a big fan of the trade shows, don't go to just those big companies to see what they're doing. Go around to all the edges and all the sides and see what's going on there. And especially, I would say that if you could work at McDonald's or you could actually try being a salesperson, and a lot of people don't think about it. A lot of people think that, like you said, you get bloody on both sides sometimes. There's some downsides. What do you think was one of the most fun parts about being basically in sales?
I just met so many nice people, and I was always constantly in new applications. So it was exciting, just new technologies and so forth. I represented a leading edge company for image processing. And you talked about San Diego has a lot of really bright small companies. And I represented one called Megatech, which was the first one to do a real 3D wireframe rotation. And that was,
Unbelievable foundation for where we're at today. Gaming and everything depends on it. It's unbelievable.
I want to do a caution for the ladies out there. Okay.
Okay.
So ladies do well and there's a lot of men's world out there, and they can get into doors that are important, but sometimes uh, men are terrible. They're misleading sometimes, and they will get it, and they'll have a lady come back again and again when they're
Ah,
not don't really have a, so you gotta be smart, ladies.
you
You
got to do
gotta
your qualifying of your clients. Don't do
have,
they have a real need? Do they have money to pay for it? And is the timing good? And if it's not one of those, you might as well say, okay,
and that happened with the rep company I was with, because there was a lady that was really sharp and personable and did all the list of stuff, but she wasn't successful. And I think it was because she was getting jacked around.
and that, but that goes back to being clear. And I remember when I worked at Robert Waxman's in Denver years ago, and that's where I got a lot of my sales training, is the manager basically said, he said, you don't have to worry about rejection and don't waste your time. He said, there's three reasons why somebody might buy from you. They need all three of these to be present. They need what you have, they have the money to pay for it, and the timing is right for them, and then they'll buy it. And if they don't have one of those three things, so the best thing you can do, female or not, is to go in there and find out those three things right away. And if not, then you build a relationship and see, is this somebody I can work with later? Is it a timing issue or whatever? But I appreciate you bringing that up, because I bet it's not just women, it's men too that get yanked around just because, and also they might try to get a lower deal from you or something because you're desperate.
And that brings up another thing. You should not be timid about asking questions about that. Okay to ask those questions. It's okay.
I am super excited. Now, let me ask you this. If you were 25 today or at that age range and you've got a degree of some kind, by the way, what was your bachelor's in before I asked that question?
I have a bachelor's in business management,
Yeah.
and my master's is in organizational psychology, and my passion is social networks and social
Oh,
milieu. Yeah. And so I'm having fun with that right now in my current world. And so I
you
like
want to
I
talk about your, yeah. So before we answer that, what would you do if you were a 25-year-old, you've just gotten out of college, you've got a business degree, especially in the business or psychology realm that you came from engineering? What would you do? What industry would you do? And what would you do tomorrow if you were going to have to land it?
so I go back to The Graduate when they have to go into chemistry, young man, or whatever it was.
Right, right.
Well,
That's what we're asking. We're asking for your sage wisdom here.
the real wisdom is don't listen to one person. The real wisdom is have a board of directors. And I
Oh,
tell them this is real important.
okay.
So young kids can have a fun life in no sense that you don't have to be stiff or anything like that. You can have a really fun life, but have a few old timers that have your interests in mind, not the people that are trying to sell you stuff, but some old gray hairs. And you can look at them and say, this guy was successful, and they can give wisdom. And there's a lot of wisdom out there. And that's part of the sales world too, is networking around, because you have to ask for that. And I'm skipping around again,
That's
and that's
okay.
you talk to someone in an organization, who's the guy that's been around there 20 years, and you get tips, and they can network you to somewhere else and that kind of thing.
And so when you say a board of directors, you're talking about whatever people that you might need that are in your corner that
Yeah.
have some of them at least have some experience,
So
and
don't
some could
trust
be your
anyone.
best friend, but other people might be from the industry you're planning to go into.
And it could be a variety of specialists, and so it's different for everybody, but have some wise people that you can confide in and get some advice from.
So this is in the book that I wrote, Survival 101. I quote Arnold Schwarzenegger, who says, "You can call me Arnie, you can call me the Terminator, but don't ever call me a self-made man because I have gotten so much help. I have worked with so many people and they helped me." He moved to the US and he was broke, and a lot of his friends brought over some furniture, some dishes. And that's the kind of thing that you're talking about, is don't feel like you've got to do it yourself. Get this board of directors in your life. So we'll have another video just on the board of directors sometime, maybe. But tell me what you're doing in your life. How can people follow you? What are you doing in your world right now?
So, well, I'm doing a lot of things, but one of them is a new website, and it's called folkgreen.com.
Ooh.
And it's a map of the US online. And I have links to all sorts of things around the country that are related to the character of a community. I'm not a big corporate guy, so there's a lot of coffee shops that are local coffee shops, local bars, local bike shops. But the green part of it is all the greenie organizations too. And so my thing is that the young people in this world, they want to be environmentally sound, but they want to have a cool town to move to where people are friendly and so forth. And so it's interesting, by the way, I see towns that have bike shops are typically cool, and towns that
Aha.
stores. If a town doesn't have, there's an enormous number of towns that are just totally, I call it white bread. They're white bread towns, and they just have Starbucks, and it's all corporate. And they're just like corporate servants and the people in the town, where some towns have personality, where they have art galleries and music venues and all sorts of stuff that are more exciting.
Rich and gives it a different tapestry than just being in every other town that you go to. And so this is super exciting. And can you say again, it's folkgreen.com, did you say, or
Yes.
folk?
Folk green, like folk music, green.com.
Okay, and I will basically include that in the notes below, and I will also include that on the screen when we talk. We might have to have another video and just on that particular concept, because this could be a movement in a sense of, hey, I want something richer in my life, and it might be in a small town. It might be somewhere we don't expect. I'm excited about that. And is there anything else you want to say before we sound off today?
I'd like to share that you don't have to be an extrovert to be in sales.
That's surprising.
You can be smart technically, or just, and because a lot of it's listening and coming up with answers for your customers. And so a lot of the customers don't want somebody that's overbearing. They don't want the high pressure salesperson.
Right.
So a lot of it's just having the guts to call somebody and to get in there. But you don't have to be all pushy and all, just have to be a good person and listen. And so even an introvert, it's not all whatever people think it is. And related to that, in college, you think, oh, marketing, that's a low life thing. But when you get out in the real world, it's the marketeers and the engineers that are hot stuff, as well as being CEOs are important too, obviously. But the marketeers are way more respected when you get out in the real world. But people in college don't realize that. They think, oh, this is just some high pressure salesman or something like that. No, there's a lot of serious, bright people that are into marketing, and there's a lot involved with being a successful marketeer. It's
I
it's
want to
it's
talk about that at another video, just about being a marketeer, because I think you raise a good point. If it wasn't for the marketeers, the engineers wouldn't get feedback from the customers as to what was working and what isn't working. It's like you're a vital piece of the puzzle, and the engineers can't get out there and get it distributed to the people that need it. And they might talk differently. They might even insult the clients accidentally. And so I get what you're saying. And I used to think that sales myself was a sellout. I have a marketing degree and a MBA in project management. And I know that when I was younger, I thought, oh, this is a sellout. This is like a used car salesman. But you know what? I know a lot of used car salesmen that help a lot of people too. So I think what we should do is another meeting, just on another video just on marketing.
that's good.
I hope you come back to the program again, Dave, because I think you have a lot to offer.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it very much.
Until then, where can people find you, on the folkgreen.com, or where's the best place to find you?
On folkgreen.com.
Okay, that sounds good. We'll make sure to have that. And thanks again, and we'll be talking soon.
That's good.